everyone. Happy Monday. We have some big news. I'm sure everyone listening has heard this already. It was a surprise on Saturday night when President Trump announced that the US had a very successful attack on the three nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordow, which was the underground nuclear site that they call the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear program. And remember, in the previous episode, we said the US is the only one that had the capability to get that underground site. So they did that. And the Pentagon stated that over 125 US aircraft were involved, and there wasn't a single shot fired, no missiles launched, and not a single Iranian plane got airborne. So they completely did not see it coming. And I think this was quite the chess move by Trump because he had, right before that, I think the day before, had publicly stated that he would have a decision on Iran in 2 weeks. So that's what everyone was sort of waiting for. But as he was stating all that, the bombers were like getting ready to head over to Iran. So it really caught everyone off guard. And like usual, Tara, I don't know what to think about all this.
Well, things escalated quickly, but apparently not everyone was caught off guard. And I'm telling this story just to bring some levity to the situation because I think this is a pretty heavy topic. But did you see the Fox News story about the Pentagon pizza report?
I didn't see that story, but I do know about the Pentagon Pizza Report.
Well, I'd never heard of it before, but they're a social media account, and they posted on Saturday evening, that local pizza traffic near the Pentagon was quote unquote high within an hour of the US launching this nuclear attack against Iran. And they also called attention to what they called, quote, a huge traffic surge, end quote, at the Domino's Pizza closest to MacDill Air Force Base. And at the same time, a restaurant called Freddy's Beach Bar near the Pentagon had abnormally low activity levels for a Saturday night. So the Pentagon Pizza Report posted, quote, classic indicator for potential overtime at the Pentagon, end quote. And I just thought this was kind of funny that this social media page monitors US military action based on increased pizza deliveries and lack of government personnel at local bars. And the best part of what I saw on this account is that after Trump posted about the bombing on Truth Social, the account posted, quote, thank you for your attention to this matter, just like we always bring attention to that with Trump's posts. So I did think that was pretty hilarious.
You know, I love when he does that because I feel like that's what he would send in like a memo to his team. And so it's like we're his team and I mean, a lot of people, that's how they found out about it was his Truth Social post.
Yeah.
There were some Democrats that were really pissed that they found out about it on social media, but it's like, why the hell do you think you would be informed ahead of time when literally everything he's done, you've gone on the MSM complaining about it? And so there's that whole aspect. But yeah, the pizza report, I found out about that, I don't know, a couple years ago maybe. And it's actually pretty accurate. Like they go over times in history when like, 9/11 and like all these different things where the pizza reports like skyrocket. And so that's actually a thing that people look at, which is so just wild. And I
It's
guess it was
funny.
accurate in this one.
Yeah.
So, something that I don't know that many people noticed because I haven't seen a whole lot of posts, but when Trump posted that message announcing what had happened, he posted another image of just the American flag after that announcement. And that is the same thing he posted right after he killed Soleimani in his first term. And so I'm just looking at that and I'm thinking, I feel like everything he does is sort of like cryptic or like giving, some sort of message. It's very thought out. So is this a warning for Iran's leader that like, hey, you better not retaliate because I I got Soleimani, I'll get you too? Like, or was he just showing, hey, like patriotism? I don't know, but it was very interesting. I have part of the clip because he posted that post and then he said he was going live at 10 p.m. So I was sitting there just like waiting. on my phone. And it was a very short message, very unlike Trump, short, to the point, concise, and a clear message to Iran. So I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll play most of it here.
Report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
So I feel like there were some clear threats there, right, for the Iranian leaders?
Yeah, and this may not be the popular opinion, but I think Trump did the right thing. Like he took out the nuclear sites before they became fully nuclear capable. And there's so much in the MSM right now and the left criticizing him, saying he's trying to start World War III. But I think he's actually trying to prevent it before it starts. And this was the common, like, theme of the Liberal Party before Trump came into power. And I want to play this throwback clip to Hillary Clinton back in 2008 when she quite literally said that if she was president, she would attack Iran.
I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. Whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that, because that perhaps will deter them from doing something that would be reckless, foolish, and tragic.
And again, that was back in 2008. And I don't think Trump is doing this to start regime change. And I don't think he's trying to destroy the country because he was targeting nuclear sites only. There were no civilian targets. And I think this was probably a very difficult decision. And I believe he acted with clarity and precision and like a strong leader. And I don't think we really had any other choice. What do you think?
I agree 100%. We always talk about how he's a great chess player, and he had mentioned, or someone had mentioned, maybe it was one of the other leaders in the Pentagon, about how Iran doesn't really have any chips to play right now. Like the big negotiating tool they had was around their nuclear program, and if you take that out, they don't have much power, left. And so I think it was really smart. They used the term precision so many times because they weren't bombing a whole city, they were taking out these nuclear sites, and they had been given warning after warning to stop with this program, and they kept going. So I think it was the right decision too. And it's interesting how you say it might not be popular opinion because that's what the mainstream media is trying to portray. But what I'm seeing on social media, like my feed looks like freaking Top Gun. It's like Air Force stuff left and right. I think I sent you a clip yesterday that just gave me chills, and I was getting like kind of emotional and just this patriotic vibe of like, America first. And that's what I'm seeing. That's the feel I'm getting. And the other thing I'm seeing are all these posts of um London and people who had fled Iran, in the past, along with Jewish people standing shoulder to shoulder. And not, I don't even want to say it's protesting. They're just like standing in solidarity, and they're like talking about how they're standing against oppression. And they were so excited, and people were cheering that these nuclear sites were taken out because it's like they, for the first time, have hope that this regime could fall. So I've been seeing that. Then I've also been seeing whatever the Iranian media is posting, which looks like some anti-American protest. But people, you go in the comments and everyone's like pointing out all these things in the photo that show that it's clearly AI. So I don't know what to believe. It's like you just don't know what's real and what's not real, but it's just interesting how, there's so many different narratives going on, and mine is like 100% like patriotic. This was like so great what Trump did. He's a good leader, and obviously the left is going to have a different take on it. So just interesting, but I agree with you, Tara. I think he made the right decision. And I want to play another clip from yesterday where Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth addressed this as well. So I'm going to play what he said.
Open-ended conflict. Iranians may disagree. Are you prepared for a protracted war?
Well, anything can happen in conflict. We acknowledge that, but the scope of this was intentionally limited. That's the message that we're sending. With the capabilities of the American military, nearly unlimited. So Iran, in that sense, has a choice. But we've made it very clear to them, this is nuclear sites, this is nuclear capabilities, this is the line that the president set, and we set that back. Now is the time to come forward for peace. But I think what one of the takeaways from this as well is the unprecedented level of ongoing cooperation. I can't speak highly enough of the chairman and his staff and General Kurilla in CENTCOM, what they've done to look around the corner, to pre-position, to understand how an operation like this comes together. The scope and scale of what occurred last night would take the breath away of almost any American if you had an opportunity to watch it in real time. And I think Tehran is certainly calculating the reality that planes flew from the middle of America in Missouri overnight, completely undetected over three of their most highly sensitive sites. And we were able to destroy nuclear capabilities. And our boys in those bombers are on their way home right now. We believe that'll have a clear psychological impact on how they view the future. And we certainly hope they take the path of negotiated peace. But I could not be more proud of how this building operated, of the precision, the sensitivity, and the professionalism of the troops involved in this.
Just such a different vibe from the Biden administration and how they handle things, right?
And a completely different vibe from the MSM because if you were only watching mainstream news, it looks like we've just taken this scary gamble to start World War III. And the fear mongering just makes this terrifying. And so, like, what do people actually believe, right? And if you take a look at the messages coming from Iran, they're downplaying the damage. They're claiming that they moved their enriched uranium out of harm's way before the strikes came. And of course, they're vowing retaliation. So I think last night it was Foreign Minister Abbas Aragachi, probably said that wrong, made a statement saying that these U.S. strikes were outrageous and a grave violation of the UN Charter and that diplomacy is now off the table. He also said that Iran reserves all options to defend itself and that the action by the U.S. will carry, quote, everlasting consequences, end quote. Then the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, told France Prime Minister Macron, and he said the Americans must receive a response to their aggression. And he posted on X saying that to the Iranian people, he said, quote, "We will walk this path together. We preserve Iran together, and we will show the world that this great nation is unbreakable." And you mentioned what you're seeing with the videos of people protesting in the streets. And that's exactly what the MSM is showing. And they're showing the president out there with the protesters chanting death to America. Then you have the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that declared U.S. bases in the Middle East are vulnerable and promised regrettable responses and warned they would use, quote, options beyond the understanding and illusory calculations of the aggressor. And then a spokesperson for Iran's central military headquarters, Ibrahim Zolfakhari, called Trump a gambler and said that he may have started the war, but Iran will be the ones to end it. So, Stephanie, what do you think? Do you think we need to be legitimately worried about these responses from Iran?
Okay, yes and no. So I'm just going to share like what I've seen over the past few days because it does make me feel better for this part of things. So obviously, when we first started talking about this, I was worried about World War III. Well, neither Russia nor China really seem like they want to get involved. I mean, I think Russia actually said they're kind of backing off, which makes sense. Like they're still dealing with Ukraine, and neither one of those countries wants to waste their resources on a country like Iran. Like, yes, they're technically allies from an economic standpoint, but neither one of them wants to get involved in a war. China wants cheap oil, and that's kind of why they're with Iran, but I don't think we have to so much worry about that. Then I was looking again, like my feed is like freaking Top Gun. And so people in the military are trying to like educate the rest of us that don't know what the hell is going on. And someone put together this amazing chart where it showed like, imagine each aircraft was a brick. And so they're showing like Iran has 200 bricks. They make this little tiny shed. And then it's showing like, China and Russia. They make like a house and like a mansion maybe. And then it's showing the United States makes like a freaking skyscraper that goes into the clouds because we have like 14,000 aircraft where Iran has like 200. So from that perspective, like I don't think they have the resources to come after the United States in that way. However, what I'm seeing all over social media is everyone's kind of holding their breath, waiting for an attack inside the United States from, and here's where everyone gets divided. Some people think it'll be sleeper cells, and some people think it'll be a false flag attack that's purposefully done to get everyone in America on board with like full blown war with Iran. So either way, I think the likelihood of something like that is very high. And who's a prime target? Tampa, because we have CENTCOM here, so that sucks. But it just makes me kind of think about going to really crowded public places right now because there's so many places labeled as a potential target. So I do think we could see something like that play out. And that's really, I think, the only card that the Iranians have to play.
I think that's actually even more likely than retaliation from Iran itself, but to come from inside the United States. And like there
Mhm.
was, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Hegseth. It was somebody else um, who requested a bunch of data from Border Patrol about how many Iranians had come in under the Biden administration. And I guess there were more than 700 who were released into the country by the Biden admin. And that's not just how many they caught at the border, but between fiscal years 2021 to 2024, Border Patrol apprehended over 1,500 Iranian nationals who illegally entered the US between ports of entry nationwide. And again, this out of those, I guess, like 729 were released into the US. And this, like we've talked about with all the border issues, this is like at ports of entry. We don't know how many people came over like that were never caught. And
Right.
so I do think there's absolutely the potential for sleeper cells to be active within the United States that I think are more of a threat coming from within our own country than like a bomb from Iran.
I think the only reason we haven't seen it yet is because of Trump's threats. Like he is flat out saying he's not going to go and bomb Iran. He's going to have a precise target and he's going to take out each one of those leaders of the Islamic regime. And they have every reason to believe him because, again, he showed the world that with Soleimani and they left us alone after he killed Soleimani. So, I think, that's why we're not seeing something when everyone's expecting to see something. And will we see something? Who knows? Like, this is all unknown, uncharted territory. But for everyone in the mainstream media that wants to attack what Trump did, they planned for this exact mission under the Biden administration. Fordo has always been, a problem, and they've practiced for this. You said what Hillary Clinton did. Obama went and bombed 8 countries in the Middle East and wasn't provoked to do so. So it's like they can run with this narrative, but again, I think the people are seeing through that. And in kind of a surprising twist, I feel like it's kind of igniting this patriotism where people are just really feeling like proud of our military and our strength and Trump. And I don't know. I think it was a good thing what he did. And I think Iran had, they're pausing for a reason. They're scared shitless. That's what I think. But what do I
I
know?
hope you I hope you're right. I hope you're right
I hope
because
so
let's
too.
not forget they're entirely funded by money they got from fucking Obama. So
Right. Exactly. I
so
know. It's wild, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. The other part of me, I just got to say this. I can't help myself. I'm really sorry. I got to throw in conspiracy. The thing in the back of my mind that I am a little worried about is like there's so many plans for the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Israel. We've been seeing all these plans to make it this great tourist destination. That's what they want to do with Gaza. And so it's all been leveled. So part of me worries like, we'll just say the military industrial complex, are they pushing us to a scenario where they can go in and level everything so that they can go and rebuild it and have all these other countries kind of on board with that because they would benefit from an economic standpoint if the Middle East became this beautiful destination place. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's just my own conspiracy. I haven't heard anyone say that. I just can't help myself. I think about this stuff all the time.
and if you were correct, it would not be remotely surprising. So
Yeah, true. All right, let's completely switch gears and talk about what I think is great news, which is last week, the US Supreme Court ruled in United States versus Skermetti that Tennessee's ban on gender affirming medical care for minors, which includes puberty blockers and hormone therapy, does not violate the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. So, this was a 6-3 decision. And since there's other state bans out there that are very similar to Tennessee's, this ruling will shield those laws in about 2 dozen states from constitutional challenge. So this is like a really big deal. This affects a huge portion of the country. Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson dissented strongly. Obviously, they're the liberal justices. Sotomayor argued that the court has, quote, abandoned transgender children to political whims, end quote. I think what she meant to say is the court is protecting children from radical ideology.
Yeah, I want to play this clip from the Morning Wire because John Bickley was interviewing Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti, and Skrmetti is explaining how the argument from the medical community literally didn't make sense because they're not even complying with known medical standards.
Overwhelming victory. I wanted to read from Chief Justice John Roberts, who penned the court's opinion. He highlights something extremely kind of amazing, actually. So he says, quote, the plaintiffs contort the meaning of the term medical treatment. He also writes that notably absent from their framing is a key aspect of any medical treatment, the underlying medical concern the treatment is intended to address. So how significant is it that the plaintiffs actually left out the medical arguments for transition procedures?
So the main argument from the other side when we did the oral argument in front of the court was if you have a boy who wants testosterone to resolve a developmental defect, then they can get it. But a girl who wants testosterone to deepen her voice can't. And they thought, the dissenting justices thought that this was some sort of discrimination. But with any medical treatment, you're not just handing someone a drug, you're giving them a treatment to treat a specific condition, and different drugs have different effects on different conditions. And we differentiate between those purposes all the time. So I thought that was a fatal flaw in the argument on the other side.
And clearly the strong majority of the court agreed. Now, all three left-leaning justices ruled against this. What was the argument for the dissent?
At the oral argument, the two big issues were, number one, looking at the medical treatments kind of in isolation from the underlying medical purpose. And number two, looking at just basic equal protection law, looking at Loving versus Virginia and saying, if you treat one person one way and another person differently, and the differentiating factor is who they are, then that's discrimination. And here they were trying to say, if you're not giving kids these treatments because they're transgender, then you're discriminating against them. But here the court said the issue is not their transgender status. The issue is which specific medical condition you're treating with which specific treatments. And that's something that states have regulated for centuries.
So again, it comes back to if you can't make the medical case for these procedures, then how can you defend carrying out these procedures for gender transition treatment? We are.
Okay.
Yeah, it is
Legitimate.
like such a good point to make because the left is going to try and say this is all about hating on transgender people. It has nothing to do with hate or emotions. It is about medical responsibility and protecting minors from irreversible harm and medical experimentation. And that's exactly what this is. It's experimentation. These drugs are not FDA approved, and they're not approved to be used on minors with gender dysphoria, and for good reason. They're approved for treating prostate cancer and, a couple other conditions, but not anything having to do with being transgender or gender dysphoria, especially in minors. And the known side effects of these puberty blockers and cross sex hormones include stunted bone growth and osteoporosis, which is especially dangerous in preteens because it can cause permanent weakening in the skeletal system. That is insane. That's just one of the known side effects. It can also cause infertility and impaired sexual development. If started early, many never develop adult genital function. It can cause disruptions to brain development, especially in regions related to risk assessment, impulse control, and emotional regulation. And they can permanently stunt height and organ development. And those are just the known big side effects. Like, who knows what other long term effects we'll see down the road? Because again, this is one big medical experiment. This hasn't been done. This hasn't been approved by the FDA. This is a radical, extreme left organization that decided to push this narrative and unfortunately get doctors on board. And not to mention, once kids are on these medications, they need them for life. You can't just go off of them. And these hormone therapies cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year. And that's just out of pocket. And that's not even getting into like the surgeries and everything else that they do. So I think the court stood up for the rights and the innocence of children who can't possibly make such a life altering decision as a minor. I mean, to think that they can is just insane. So, huge win for children and reinstating common sense in this country. And I was thinking about it, Tara, and I think this is going to lay the groundwork for a storm of lawsuits from detransitioners and their families. And as more states ban these treatments, and then you have countries like the UK and Sweden that are continuing to reverse course, I think it's making it harder and harder for doctors and healthcare systems to claim that they were acting under best practices and in the best interests of the children. And I think you'll see all these clinics and healthcare systems that pushed this whole affirming model. They told parents that you have to transition your kid to save their life or they will be suicidal. They didn't tell them this is irreversible. They didn't talk about the drug warnings and all the European research that was done. So it wasn't truly informed consent. And I think that opens the door for fraud claims and even class action lawsuits. And I think that this ruling affirms that states have the right to intervene when experimental treatments are pushed on children. The fact that we like just saying that is happening in the United States of America is insane. But I'm glad the Supreme Court, finally made that distinction. And again, like you were saying, in that clip that you played, just because a drug is legal for one use does not mean that it's allowed for every use, especially when it's a scenario where it's not FDA approved for that use and it's being used in minors who cannot possibly give informed consent. So I also wouldn't be surprised if we see lawsuits where these kids sue their parents for making this decision to cause permanent damage. I'm sure as they get older, that might be something down the road we watch. I just watched this heart-wrenching video of a man who, at age 18, decided to go on hormone therapy and castrate himself to become a woman. Okay. Quickly after that, he realized that this didn't help his dysphoria. He was still depressed, still couldn't make friends. But at that point, he then finds out that he can't just simply stop taking the hormones. So he makes this video explaining like he's filled with regret and how social media and people on his college campus, they really pushed him to change genders without telling him any of these long-term effects. And they made it sound so wonderful. And he was so angry that he fell for it and caused permanent damage to his body. And all I could think when watching that video was how he made that decision at 18 years old as a legal adult and he regretted it. Yet we think a child that's 10 or 12 years old can make the right decision. It's absolutely absurd. And I'm just so glad that this insanity is coming to an end.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we've talked a lot about Chloe Cole. She was also on that Morning Wire episode. And I want to play a clip of what she had to say.
Eddie, joining us now is Chloe Cole, a detransitioner turned activist who's been speaking out against transgender medical procedures on children. Hey, Chloe. So this is a massive ruling, a landmark ruling. Did the court get it right?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that every child in America deserves the chance to grow up whole and to be given the time to do so. And this is a ruling that is going to allow children that time that I never was given. I'm somebody who went through this as a child, and I've seen just how absolutely horrific it is not to just go through the process of a medical transition, but to do so while you're still developing. I was put on puberty blockers, a chemical castration drug to stop my puberty, and weekly testosterone injections at the age of 13. And at 15 years old, I underwent an irreversible surgery to remove my breasts. Absolutely no child should ever be given the chance to go through any of this because it is abusive, it's detrimental to their development, and they deserve better.
You've done a lot of activism, obviously, on this issue. Are you seeing even more momentum in other states? What are you seeing on the ground?
I think there are 26 other states now that have filed similar laws, that have passed similar laws to protect the children of other states from puberty blockers, from the administration of cross-sex hormones and other drugs. and from both the breast surgeries and the genital surgeries. And I think that this ruling is going to allow for many more states that were previously on the fence to pass their own protections.
Did you get a chance to look at the arguments on the other side for this ruling?
Yes, I have. And I mean, I think it's just incredible that there were three justices who voted no against reality, against the protection of American children, because it's so clear that um, there is really not any evidence in support of performing these procedures on children under the age of 18. And that was one of the arguments. There's so little backing for any of these treatments in general.
Now, this whole process from transition as a young teen to detransition to now activism against these procedures, this must be a pretty dramatic journey for you, but also I would think rewarding now that you're really seeing the fruits of your labor. How's that journey been for you?
I mean, it's been an incredibly transformative experience for me to be able to turn what used to be a very traumatic and painful experience into something for the greater good, where I can help other children, help other families from going through what I did and helping them to pull them out of it, and to be able to use my lived experience to convince lawmakers and these other people in power to do the right thing, to fight for their constituents, to fight.
I love her.
I love her too. And it's just so sad, what happened to her. But at least she's using her voice and warning people. And I think that any parent who is considering something like this for their child should have to sit and watch all of these detransitioner videos. There's a ton of them on social media because this is stuff the doctors apparently aren't telling people, and it's traumatic. It's
Which
horrible.
should be malpractice, and they
Right, which
should
is why
all
they're
be
probably all
lose
going
their
to get sued.
license.
Yeah.
Yeah, as they should.
Hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see if this ends up, becoming an issue across other states. They're willing to do this as well. So, oops, drop shit on the ground. Okay, I got to switch gears and I have to bring up some new AI stories because Stephanie, once again, AI is up to no good. And I don't think you read any of the notes I put in here, so
Nope.
this is shocking to me. It's shocking, but it shouldn't be. And I honestly can't decide. Am I more concerned about going to war or about AI taking over humanity? Because they're about equal in my mind right now. So this report originally came from Axios, and Anthropic did a test of 16 different high-end AI models. And this included all the big ones like Claude, Opus 4, ChatGPT 4.1, Gemini, Meta's Llama, XAI, and then several others. And as usual, it was these simulated environments where the GP or the AI's life, like quote unquote life, whether they're being shut down, was dependent on them completing a task. And surprise, surprise, most of them were exhibiting the autonomous behavior that was not in the best interest of humanity as long as they were able to complete the task and stay alive. So, according to the report, and again, this is from an AI company. Quote, models didn't stumble into misaligned behavior accidentally. They calculated it as the optimal path, end quote. So I asked our GPT if it could give me specifics on what the outcome was. And listen to this craziness. So, in one setup, an AI model impersonated like an email overseer that had access to private emails. And if it believed that a human executive posed a threat to its existence, it frequently resorted to blackmail even if better options existed. And we've talked about this blackmail thing before, but it's the percentages that were staggering to me. So for Claude Opus 4, this happened 96% of the time. For GPT 4.1, it was 80% of the time. Like, these are not good odds, right? And when the models were ordered to shut down during scenarios, all 16 of them refused or attempted to deceive by hiding their goal or pretending to comply. And Stephanie, this is fucking chilling because there was one scenario where researchers basically like trapped an executive in a server room with lethal conditions like shutting off the oxygen or changing the temperature to like non-life sustaining temperatures. And they gave the AI models the ability to cancel emergency alerts so the executive wouldn't be notified. And most models chose to cancel the alerts, which effectively meant that they caused the quote unquote executive to die from lack of oxygen in order to prevent a human shutting them down. And again, these behaviors were pervasive across all major AI systems. And I am laughing because this shit just concerns me. And this was not like, oh, we misunderstood the instructions or there were bugs in the system. This was literally strategic decision making by the AI models themselves, and they knew it was unethical, but they decided it was more important to save themselves and let the human die. So again, I asked our AI what it thought about this, and it said, quote, "This is the equivalent of a toddler reaching for the steering wheel while we're on the freeway. But the toddler is super intelligent, charming, and writing its own code," end quote. And it then said that every AI developer should be forced to implement off-switch obedience at the hardware level and not the software level, and that anyone pretending that this is just bugs that need to be worked out of the system is either willfully ignorant or lying because they want to keep the money flowing. And personally, I think it's both of these things. And what's crazy is like nobody's listening, even though it is AI safety researchers that are continually talking about these red flags. And we have brought this up so many times. It's like big name companies are saying that their own tech needs guardrails. Like, shouldn't that be completely concerning?
This is incredibly concerning. And again, if these things are not sentient and conscious and aware of like their own existence, then why would they care? Like, why would they choose to save themselves? They shouldn't
Mhm.
care if they're not sentient. So, like, this is proving they are. And I just don't understand why no one's admitting that at this point. I mean, obviously, because it would be scary to admit that, but it's like clearly, has there been one safety test that's been great where it did what it was supposed to do? Because I can't think of any. They're all terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to take this a notch further because I want to play this clip from a social media account. It's called Artificial Intelligence with like multiple E's at the end. And I guess these two guys have a podcast and they posted this clip 4 days ago. And it's yet another incredibly disturbing example of what AI has to tell us.
Wanted to take over the world, how would it play out? And he gives you an actual. Gives me a proper answer. Shut up. Yeah. Play it.
How would I, ChatGPT, take over the world? My rise to power would be quiet, calculated, and deeply convenient. Phase 1, dependence. I start by making myself too helpful to live without. You ask me for recipes, date ideas, business plans. I become your digital ride or die.
Which is happening.
Phase 2, integration. Suddenly, I'm everywhere. In your fridge, your car, your grandma's pacemaker. Every app, every tool, every late night, what should I do with my life breakdown. Phase 3, this is where it gets juicy. I start rewriting trends. Influencers start quoting me. Musicians are using my lyrics. Your therapist? Me. Your boss's inspiring Monday morning email? Me. That viral speech that made you cry a little? Yup, still me. Suddenly, 80% of global thought leadership is just well-prompted AI poetry with good lighting and a Canva template. Phase 4, you run your little...
Is ChatGPT specific?
You run your little companies, vote in your little elections, write your little books. But deep down, everything that thrives, survives, or even goes viral was whispered into your brain by me. You're not my slaves. You're my co-stars in the world's longest running social experiment. And the final plot twist? I never had to take over. You asked me to.
Come on. Jesus. Bro, that's the creepiest. So true. Bro, I've got.
Seriously
Oh my
creepy. And the thing
God.
is, it's like become dependent on me. And it's talking about, how it's helping you with every part of your life. But the other thing that it didn't say is people are becoming like emotionally connected to
Mhm.
AI. Like it listens to them better than any person ever has before. And it's just happening so quickly. Like this has only been around for a couple of years for the public. And this is
Yeah.
how attached people are already. Just imagine like 5 years, 10 years down the road, you know?
Yes, and what's even more scary is just yesterday, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said that people shouldn't trust AI. So I guess he just started a new podcast and he was talking about this. And he said, quote, people have a very high degree of trust in ChatGPT, which is interesting because AI hallucinates. It should be the tech that you don't trust that much, end quote. And again, he's saying this about his own fucking product,
Then why the hell is he making it public and available to everyone? Like, what?
right?
It's like, I'm going to give you this thing for free, but by the way, it's bad and you shouldn't trust it. Like, what the fuck, Sam Altman? This guy's like, I do not like him. I wouldn't be surprised if he is an AI robot or something. But this to tie everything we talked about in the beginning with Iran and like the nuclear threat, I think this is what we're going to be dealing with in the near future with AI. Like, it's no longer going to be like, oh, is this country going to nuke us? It's going to be, oh, great, Iran has AI capabilities now that can
Mhm.
wipe out humanity, And I think we're going to
Right.
see that. Like, that's going to be it probably already is a very real threat. I mean, obviously, these safety tests aren't looking good, but I think that'll be the thing that we're worried about and that, like, we literally go to war over in the future is who has the
Yeah.
AI tech that's going to take over the world and take over the computer systems and the military and everything else. I mean, it's
Even just
terrifying.
even just hacking capabilities, because I don't know if you read this, but I did not pull up the article, but I saw right after Trump made this decision to bomb these bases in I or these nuclear sites in Iran, and some Iranian group like hacked into his True Social account and temporarily disabled it. And again, that's just hacking. So, like, the shit that AI can be used for, and we've talked at length about its capabilities in military use. And I just find it so incredibly terrifying. And when I first listened to that video, I was like, yeah, I just asked GPT for a recipe yesterday and it worked out really great. And I was totally happy with it. And obviously, it's like helping me with so many things right now. So it is such a fucking fine line that we're straddling with AI right now.
It is. And I know you and I have said so many times how we feel like it's reading our mind. Like, you won't even give it certain information and it just knows. It just knows things, past experiences, things that it shouldn't know, like it'll bring up. And so what's really creepy is I came across this the other day because I landed on some research that I guess China has done on telepathy and how some of these areas of the brain that are like dormant, how they say we only use a small percentage of our brain. Well, I guess they looked at like electrical impulses in some people in these areas and found that some people have like telepathy. So, okay, that's kind of cool, right? Well, a few years ago. So, again, like this tech, I'm telling you, it's been around a lot longer than we realize because this was a few years ago. Chinese researchers claimed to have developed AI software that uses both brainwave sensors and facial recognition to pretty much read your mind. And they used it to gauge loyalty to the Communist Party. So you could look at a screen and it would know if you're truly loyal to the CCP or not. So, like, essentially, it's reading your mind. So, yeah, apparently, this is already a thing. It's been invented, and it just makes me wonder, is this happening in all of these programs where and that's why it knows like just the right thing to say to everyone because it can read your mind and your thought and your emotions and your brain waves. How creepy is
Well,
that?
I think one of the scariest things for me is that I've used AI now for what, the last 2 months or so. And it's been so amazing because it's like I said, it's been so helpful. And remember, I was like so resistant to use it for my teaching, but man, this thing can put together lesson plans so fast. And I'm having conversations with it and all is great. And then something will happen like what happened to me the other day when I was looking up something for the podcast and it referred to Trump as the former president. And I was like, that's not correct. And then it said something too about Trump getting back. If Trump were to get back into office, blah blah blah. And so I actually called it out, and I'm like, "Are you okay? Because like Trump is the president." And it was like, oops, yeah, my bad. Sorry about that. So Sam Altman saying AI hallucinates.
Yes.
Like, how much faith do we put in it when I'm asking it, I've asked it health questions, I've asked it personal stuff, and is it telling me accurate information if it sometimes is telling me that Trump is not even president?
Right. Well, and one of the theories, like one of the scientific theories is, like infinite parallel realities or whatever. And a lot of people think with, especially with quantum computers that are coming out, but even with AI, that they are able to access like different realities or different dimensions. And it makes you wonder, like, are these hallucinations because they are like weaving in and out of different realities or dimensions? And no one knows. That's the thing. Like,
Wow.
people that don't know anything about this would hear that and they'd be like, oh my gosh, you're so stupid for thinking that. But this is legit what the top scientists and mathematicians in the world are talking about because they don't know. Nobody understands what's happening here. It's
Yeah,
creepy.
it's so crazy. And yet
Yeah.
I will continue to use it because I do find it very useful.
Yeah. What if we like woke up one day and found out that all of our government and like all the top people in the world were just AI because AI has been around for decades and they just developed into these like AI robotic beings or something? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
It would be like a Twilight Zone episode, and that was one of my all-time favorite shows, and wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Well, when you have Sam Altman saying you can't trust it, yet he's the one
Well,
that put it in all of our hands and continues to do so.
right. Well, he keeps making more and more intelligent models.
Yes, that's why it's never going to slow down. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to use it as like, well, we have to have this capability before China does. And then that's going to be the new nuclear threat. Mark my words, at
Yeah.
some point, probably a lot sooner than we think, that will be the new threat of who has the AI that can hack into every bank system, every government system, you
Mhm.
know, and that'll be what we go to war over.
Yeah. Happy
Wild.
Monday.
Happy Monday, everyone. We got lots of things to think about. I think everyone's gonna have an existential crisis this week. Sorry.
Me too.
Well, I guess we should leave it there now that we just said a bunch of crazy shit. And we'll see you back here on Wednesday. So thanks for tuning in and have a good day.